I am getting word that we are ready for Control by Demonic Robots. Demonic Robots. So please take it away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we not doing a countdown? Sorry. Okay, sorry. All right, hey there, everybody. My name is DemonicRobots, and welcome to Control. This is a 2019 third-person shooter by Remedy Games. If you haven't heard of them, they are the guys who did like Alan Wake and Max Payne. And yeah, this is basically like the closest that we can get to an SCP-inspired spooky game. So I'm really excited to show it off. We're gonna get started right here. Time is gonna start when we skip this opening cutscene. Basically, we're gonna be playing as a girl named Jessie, who is looking for her missing brother, and this kind of stumbles into a whole other world that she's not prepared for. So
Weirder than usual.
That line perfectly describes this game, and we're gonna get started here. I'll do a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. So right now we are playing as Jessie Faden. She's looking for her missing brother. About, I think it's 17 years ago, her hometown basically was caught in a paranormal thing. And what ended up happening is the Federal Bureau of Control, or the FBC, came in, cleaned everything up, took her brother, and she's been looking for him ever since. She also has a voice in her head who is named Polaris, who's a really integral character to the story. But right now she has finally found the Federal Bureau of Control after all this time, and now she's trying to find her brother, and she comes across a scene where there's a lot of bad stuff happening. So basically this is going to be this opening area is the classic boomer tale of starting ourselves off at the bottom of the company as the janitor's assistant and working our way up to the top to the director of the Federal Bureau of Control. So we're going to come into here, and this is going to be our introduction to objects of power, an OOP, or as Director Darling likes to say, an oops. Basically, this is a object that is like given a special power by something called the board, which is what we're going to be seeing right here. And normally whenever we pick these up, they are going to both give us a new power of some kind, and they're also going to be giving us a new gameplay mechanic. So this is going to be our main gameplay mechanic. This is going to be the service weapon. The ammo in it basically works like a whoops, gotta wait for it to recharge. It basically works like a stamina bar. So whenever we run out of it, it doesn't need to reload it. We don't need to pick up ammo. It's just going to recharge automatically. So we kind of have to balance it out like in Dark Souls. So
yeah, and you want to make sure generally that you're not like depleting the ammo entirely, because if you just kind of like, if you have a little bit of that ammo left, and you are still going to be able to fire, but if you deplete it entirely, then you will have to wait for it to recharge entirely to fire again. So a lot of like the combat that you're going to see is like balancing the gunshots between the powers as well as the melee that you see Demonic doing, where Jessie sort of like shoots her palm out and does like a cone of damage as well. There's also spawn manipulations in this game by the way that the player turns the camera. You see him turn it right there. And this is going to make it so that enemies spawn in certain locations to kind of keep them all sort of grouped together and optimize a lot of the combat.
Yeah, sometimes their spawns are fixed. However, there are a few that are not. So this makes the room much easier by simply looking over to the left when you're approaching it instead of looking forward. This area is an example where spawns are not fixed or not random. They're always going to be fixed. So I try and do this in the best way that I can. He's running a little bit early, so that's kind of a shame, but that's all right. And you kind of want to do this in a specific order for balancing your weapon charge and also your damage. But there we go. You're gonna see some named enemies like that. Those aren't bosses. Those are considered like sub bosses. They're basically like souped up versions of normal enemies. We don't really run into them too much. So they shouldn't be too much of an issue, but
Yeah,
whenever
no.
you see like their name up there, then they're just like a sub boss. The way that you know that where like what is there isn't a boss is it actually has a huge boss bar underneath it. In this run, we're doing any percent legacy standard. So any percent means we'll beat the game as quickly as possible with no restrictions. Legacy means we're playing on the earliest patch that was publicly released. So this isn't even patch 1.0. This is patch 0.96 that was given for the devs, which we are not for the devs, for like journalists to play in reviewing the game. We play on this for a very specific reason that I'll explain later on. And standard means that we are allowed to go out of bounds. Okay, so this is normally where I would do my very first quit out. In this game, when you quit to the menu, it'll place you back at your most like recent checkpoint, which was that control point we locked onto earlier. Sometimes it saves time like RTA only or RTA, and sometimes it doesn't, but it saves time with our timing method of being LRT. So most of the time though, there'll be RTA, but that's one where we would have done it if I was doing a PB attempt. And here we go, more combat and more spawn manipulation. Right now we don't have any of our powers that we'll be getting later on. So because we don't really have any of our powers, we're basically just kind of doing some really optimized combat with the little we have. You'll notice a trend that whenever I get a new power of some kind, I almost break the game immediately with it. So that's going to be a very common thing in this run.
This is also, these two things that we've hit in the last couple of fights are called control points, and they're the way that the Hiss will try and take, this is how they take control of the Federal Bureau of Control. So when Jessie cleanses these control points, she gets rid of the influence of the Hiss in the area, and they are what is, how the game bonk. This is how the game determines the checkpoints.
If you're wondering what the Hiss is, it's kind of just this red mist thing that is taking over everybody who's not wearing a special device except for Jessie, and is basically trying to kill everybody in here, and is a very bad thing. So right now we're trying to get to what's called a hotline. We're seeing visions of the old director who we saw was dead at the very beginning of the game. So we're trying to get to the hotline, which will both allow us to talk to the board much more clearly, who is kind of this like entity that is helping us fight off the Hiss, and it also will give us access to Dr. Darling to talk to us via the bullet in his brain from the service weapon. As you can see, this game gets very weird very quickly. But we have a new power. This is called Launch. This is going to be our main like ability throughout the entire game. It also introduces us to the energy bar. Basically, all of our powers except for 1 or 2 are used from this. So because it's a shared pool, we have to be careful because this is also going to be used for our dash later on. But we're going to do the very first skip. Like I said, we just got a brand new power. So we're going to do a new skip. Oh, whoops, let's try this one more time. We're gonna stack up these boxes and then we're trying to jump into it. I'm gonna get a better angle for it. We're gonna jump onto this box and then we're gonna jump into this box. And whenever you are stuck in collision, the game will try and push you upwards. There we go. And it pushes us up through the floor. So this actually skips the entire first boss. A lot of people, when they're playing this game casually, quit at that boss because it was too hard. And speedrunners are just gonna completely go over it.
Yeah, and that skip is called No Masi because that boss is called Tamasi, but you don't fight him, so there's no Masi there.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing with a lot of our skip names. They're all like really silly like that.
It's great,
which is really fun. So this is the Ocean View Motel. This is kind of the way for the game to like add some mystery while also including some puzzle stuff. So every time you come here, there's gonna be a different puzzle that you have to solve in order to unlock a door or do something like that. We're gonna be like not really doing many of these like in the intended way. There we go, that opens this bridge and it's going to allow us to get access to the hotline. Even though this is an object of power, and I mentioned these earlier as being like gameplay mechanics, this one doesn't really serve one that is useful to us. It basically just unlocks a bunch of lore stuff. Which, the lore for this game is really cool, but not very useful in the speedrun. So this is going to be pretty much just story progression right here.
There is something I've been meaning to ask you too, which is, are the clips with the objects, like the environmental objects, I should say, are those easier at higher frame rates?
I don't think so. Typically, when it comes to the frame rate, it doesn't really matter too much. Like, you could do this at 30 or 60.
Okay.
The only thing that's affected with the frame rate has to do with like menus, and that's not really too important to the run. But here you go, you're going to see that we're going to do a quit to menu. So that's going to put us right back here where we were earlier to one of the checkpoints, and then we can just fast travel to the other one. So this is going to be a very common thing. The game wants you to backtrack a lot because it's a Metroidvania style game, so you're expected to go through like areas again, and also like later on in the game when you have new powers. But we're not going to be doing that. So we talked to that character's name is Emily. She is kind of the assistant researcher for the entirety of the Federal Bureau of Control. She's also pretty much like the only person who really knows what's going on. Oh, I got the first try. Nice. But she basically sends us down to turn off the internal lockdown. So right now the entirety of the facility is locked into different sectors, but we can't travel between sectors right now because of the lockdown, and the only person who can release the lockdown is going to be Jesse. So this is where the game is going to start to look really, really glitchy. We need to get into that room next to us, and we can very easily by going out of bounds. However, we need to hit a bunch of triggers to avoid soft locking. Hitting triggers in this game is going to be a very common thing that we have to do. Like I said, it's a Metroidvania, so it's not linear. So we're coming here for two reasons. We need to hit all the triggers, and we also need to get a new power.
Yeah, something you'll notice a lot about the out of bounds sections in this game is that, theoretically speaking, you could go a lot faster to a lot of these sections, but the game is very, very specific about what sort of flags you have to trigger in order to progress through the game. So there will be some times where it'll look like Demonic is sort of taking, kind of the scenic route to get to, like to finish a skip, but it's really all necessary because he's just hitting a bunch of flags.
This place makes me nauseous.
Yeah, it's very easy to miss them, and it's very easy to you saw like right there when I was like climbing up out of bounds. If I don't go far enough right, then this guy doesn't spawn and I soft lock my game. So you have to be very, very careful when you're coming through these areas. But here we go. This is actually a side mission. It's not required to beat the game, but this gives us our dash ability, which is much faster than the time it takes to actually do it, and enables a lot of the out of bounds movements. So this is going to be our first little glitch with it. We're gonna be able to kind of come over here, get pushed up into the collision, and there we go. So we skipped some of the platforming that we would normally have to do in this area. Whenever you get a new object of power, it kind of gives you like a tutorial like thing that you have to do, and this is the tutorial for the dash. There we go. So now we have completed our first objective of going past the end. Now we just need to actually just hit the rest of the objective triggers in the game. So as you can see, I'm also using that energy bar to dash. That is also tied to my launch, so I have to be careful. I don't want to like dash into a fight because then I won't be able to launch. We're gonna over here hit that trigger. We're gonna do another out of bounds. Normally this is where we would talk to Ati, and he would tell us to do a bunch of stuff like I think fix some energy converters and do other things that's supposed to stop the facility from blowing up. However, Jesse is kind of lazy, so we call this entire segment the lazy assistant, where we hit all the triggers and then we just go to the end without doing anything that Ati actually wanted us to do. And here we are, we're at the end. I'm gonna try and get something called pull-throughs. So basically, whenever you're like using your launch, you can actually hit multiple enemies at once by grabbing a object that's behind them, and then it'll come to you and it'll hit them on the way. So I try to get as many of those as I can, and then you can also throw them, and if there are multiple enemies around, you can actually hit multiple. So that's something that I'm going to be trying to do a lot with the combat, is like getting enemies together and then hitting them all at once with one throw versus needing 2 or 3 throws to do it. Right, now we're gonna go back to Emily. This is kind of a very common thing at the very beginning of the game where you have to go talk to Emily after doing everything. And then as Jesse kind of gets more used to the like facility and all that stuff, then we can start doing things on our own. But now we're gonna be looking for a character called Marshall. She is basically the most like badass character that is currently alive outside of Jesse. She is like ex-CIA and pretty much knows everything about the facility. She was the old director's kind of top person for all this stuff, so she's going to be kind of a badass. And right now she is securing something called the HRA lab. The HRAs are going to be what you see other characters wearing, and that is protecting them from being corrupted by the hiss. So they want to get this lab so they can make more of them and get people out of the safe rooms. And that is very, very important. So Jesse is going to be going to go do that. But of course, we're going to be doing a couple of skips along the way. So this one used to be called just 2-fight skip, and then we include another one for screamy skip is what it was called. So now we do both of them at once, and basically now it's called research skip. Not as fun of a name as the other ones, but you can't win them all.
Why wouldn't you just call it? You could call it like 2 screamy or something.
That's
like
a good one too. Yeah, I guess it's like basically just like doing 2 skips at once. So you could also just be them like separate. So I'm going to be doing some very specific movement here. I have to be very careful. I have to hit the trigger without getting stuck in the wall. Good. And then like right now I'm like walking on the edge of this.
Very nice.
So I have to be very, very careful.
The collision here is just so dark.
Yeah,
it's so hard to see. There and it all.
I have done this like 1,000 times, so a lot of this is muscle memory. There we go.
I mean, definitely at some point too, like, you know, oh, there's also the hiss balls there too. I forget the actual buff that
they will
give
constantly
enemies,
heal them, so it's not really great for us.
That's what it is, yeah. I wasn't sure if it was like it buffed the health or if it was constant health regen, but yeah, there you go. So the game definitely wants you to prioritize those enemies, like in pretty much every fight that you see.
Oh, that was so good.
Very good of the. That was really clean. That was like
I think that was 4.
Was that a triple? I think that was a triple. That was 4. Okay, I must have not seen the other guy. That's really good.
Could be wrong. It's hard to tell sometimes in that area. I'm trying to do this fight in a very specific way. Wow, I'm getting a lot of pull-throughs.
I was gonna say the enemies that were just spawning in there, you grabbed the bench from over to the right, and then it just pulled through both of them and killed them. Really, really clean.
Awesome. That was really good.
Very nice.
So yeah, with these fights, combat in this game is actually probably the biggest difference between like a good control player and a really good one. I would say that I'm pretty decent, but if you look at some of the other runners where they got like these fights down, and that like really adds up a lot of time, is these fights more than the skips. We're gonna try and get as many pull-throughs as I can here. These enemies will basically float towards you and try to blow you up. So you have to be a little bit careful with them. That was actually a really good fight. You have to be pretty careful with them. Also, we're gonna look at the map right here. As you can see, I can still move while the map is open, but yeah, this elevator goes sideways, which actually makes pretty good sense in the universe, so it's not like that weird. The gimmick of this building is it's called the oldest house, and essentially it is like the Doctor Who TARDIS, where it is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, so it likes to shift and move around a lot and grow in size and shrink and all that stuff.
I wish there were more side moving elevators, dude. Have you ever tried to go from one
right?
end of a
You have to like walk down that huge hallway.
Yes, sir.
So right now I'm trying to kill these guys in a specific order. That hiss ball is kind of being annoying. But I want to kill all these enemies while I'm like looking at them. Because otherwise, like, it's a weird spawn manipulation that you have to do. So I want them to be facing ahead of me, because then these guys should spawn in front of me. And it's much better for them to spawn ahead of me than it is to be doing it behind. That last one, cool.
This is, I think this is probably still the biggest fight
Yeah.
left in the run.
So this
isn't it?
right here, this enemy is the reason why we play on 0.96 instead of 1.0. Is I'm able to drop his shield with one throw instead of doing it with two. So this is really important and changes our DPS a lot. Only needing to do one throw to like actually hit him.
Yeah, I'd say it's like at least a second each throw.
Good manipulation. You want those enemies to be right in front of you again. And that was a insanely good ritual fight. I'm gonna go right here, and we got a dodge efficiency cost mod, which is really good. So that's the only mod that we get in the game, really. We can equip some ones later on, but we want to try and get that drop. It's random, so whenever we're able to get it, it's very good. But that'll basically mean that we can use less of our energy bar to dodge, and eventually it will give us technically more dodges once we level up. So it's very, very useful.
These HRPs. Sounds like Darling built them. And most of the things after.
Gotta do a quick little puzzle.
And this is another little puzzle. Yeah, that's like,
I still don't know how to solve this casually. I looked it up and then I've known it ever since. But yeah, so now we're trying to fix this machine to make more of the things that Marshall has on. So now if there's any donations or messages that want to be read, now is the time to do so.
This looks a bit more complicated.
Darling must have had a system. Randomness
All
is
right. So we don't currently have any additional donations, but I can take this time to tell you a little bit about LEAD. That is the charity that we are benefiting all weekend long. They are a substance use prevention organization that believes young people are capable of making good decisions. The core reason that LEAD exists is to significantly reduce drinking, drug use, and other risky behavior by youth, while working simultaneously to eliminate the root causes of these issues in the future. If you'd like to learn more about LEAD, you can head to linkingefforts.com. And just one last quick reminder too, we do have a donation incentive opened up for Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance later today. That will be for an additional bonus any percent run. We're currently sitting at $33 out of the required $150 to make that happen. So please get your donations in before then if you'd like to see that happen.
All right, awesome. Okay, so now we are heading into the next mission. We are heading towards the Black Rock processing quarry, and basically the reason that we're going to be doing that is we need to get a piece of Black Rock in order to fix the machine. So Black Rock is basically anti-spooky properties. It basically kind of nullifies a lot of the effects that objects of power and altered items have. But first we need to get our next power. This is the biggest change in the route since its inception, basically. Is the inclusion of a glitch involving the shield. So we need to go get the shield first. It's kind of out of the way, which is why we didn't use it for a long time.
Keep him safe.
Fix. Go. So right now we are going to go collect the shield. We have to go out of bounds to do this. It's kind of a weird wonky way to do it, but here we go. Normally the game wants you to do like a like an obstacle course, but we're not going to do that because that's too slow. There we go. And this is going to give us our shield ability. Now you're thinking probably, you know, shield isn't really that useful. You know, it's nice to kind of keep yourself protected, but it doesn't really do much, right? Well, it enables us to do a glitch called Shieldy McSorry, and this is the most broken glitch I've ever seen pretty much in almost any game outside of like maybe the accelerated back hops in Half-Life 2. So we're going to be going through this little this like tutorial thing. Normally the game like wants to like teach you how to use the shield, so it makes these like invincible enemies that you have to like shield up and block, but that's really slow, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and go through it as fast as we can. And there we go. Cosmic, do you think you're able to explain what shieldy is, or do you want me to do it?
I can take a guess, you know, I can do my best. But basically Demonic is going to put up the shield, and then he's going to bring up the menu to fast travel to another place. And what happens then is, for some reason, the game just sort of wigs out when you do this, and it gives you the ability to no clip essentially.
Dylan.
The way that you control Shieldy at this point is like, it's very specific on the camera angle, and it really messes up a lot of your controls, but there's like been ways, you know, devised that you can just sort of optimize the movement and have a little bit more control over it, even though it is rather unwieldy. But it like really messes with the way that the third person camera works, but it allows you to just sort of go out of bounds at whim, and you can just kind of fly around pretty much infinitely until you decide.
Essentially, for reference, when I am going straight forward, I am actually usually holding my left and back key while also mashing the space bar for my jump to give you an idea of how to go forward with it. Yeah, so basically like what happens is, I think we actually didn't know what the like reason was for this to happen until after my GDQ run, because like we just we didn't know. So like what happens is like the game will essentially like turn off Jesse's collision when you shield up, so the objects in rubble don't like, you know, block you, and then we like load out and it streams back in the objects once we like load back in, but doesn't reset the trigger. So now it's like this is what's happening with the objects of the shield that are like colliding against Jesse. So that was a bigger example of that. Some of these are very small ones, some of these are not, and every shieldy is like completely different, so you just kind of have to like really practice them. I probably put in like maybe 100 hours of practice to like really get this trick down.
Yeah, it really can't be overstated sort of how much this trick kind of changed the landscape of the any percent run.
It went from like I think I had a 49, or I think the lowest without shieldy was like a 45, and now it's like a 40. So 5 minutes off of a like already short run is kind of insane.
Yep. Considering this is, you know, factoring in going to get the ability, because before you didn't even
that was kind of the original reason we didn't do it for the longest time, is because we just like, it took about like 2.5 minutes to get the shield, and then we optimized that down, and the time save we had like really added up. So we have so this is another little hard trick. Hopefully I can get it. Okay, that's fine, we got the backup. As you can see, like this really just enables you to go anywhere in the map that you want to. We're kind of doing this mission like completely out of order than the way that we're supposed to be doing it. That's because when it comes to hitting the triggers that I mentioned earlier to prevent soft locks, it doesn't really matter the order you hit them in as long as you hit them. Because normally when you're doing this like without glitches, like there's no way that you should hit them out of order, so they didn't really care too much. But as like speedrunners, it really helps us out.
Also, that enemy is rather dangerous if you let it live. I forget the actual name for it.
They're very spooky. I think it's Histostorm, but basically what happens is it'll turn invisible, and then it'll sneak up on you, and then it'll drop you down to 1 HP. Yeah.
That'll do it.
I'll explain it now. When it comes to HP in this game, you're gonna see me when I shoot enemies, like a bunch of blue Tic Tacs like fall out of them, and that is basically the only way that you heal in this game. You don't get med packs. It doesn't really regen too much on its own, but the way that the HP works is essentially, if an enemy is going to do like 150% of your HP, it'll actually only do 99% and it'll leave you with 1 HP, and your the border on your screen will turn red, and that means that you're able to die. So if that border isn't on there though, the only way you can die is from fall damage. Otherwise you cannot die from an enemy, which is very useful later on, because this game has like quasi RPG leveling mechanics. So enemies get really strong later on, and we're very under leveled because we're not getting any of the mods that we're supposed to be getting. We're not getting any upgrades. We're not like getting any of the stuff that we would normally grab during a casual playthrough. And that was a really good shieldy, actually. Nice.
That was pretty sick, yeah.
We're coming right here. We're gonna throw these basically gigantic batteries. That's gonna blow up this wall so we can get a piece of black rock. I don't want to kill all the enemies in this area, because if I do, it'll spawn more. As you can see, those guys are shooting rockets. Fun fact, those are homing rockets, and they are very annoying and very scary in some cases. Sometimes you get like hit by like 3 of them and it puts you in a really bad spot. There we go. We got.
Yeah, this is especially something that's like, because like Demonic mentioned, the game sort of has like these RPG qualities to it. So the game wants you to like upgrade a lot as you get, you know, deeper into the game. And there's only one difficulty that the game actually runs on. So at some point you're sort of like in a quote unquote underleveled state. A lot of the skips that, you know, that are done avoid a lot of these combat scenarios where you would be underleveled like otherwise. But there's still situations like those rockets where it's like, I really don't want to
Yeah,
here right
like
now.
normally you have like 5 different weapons you can use, and they all have these different mods that are specific to them, and then you have your own personal mods, and then you have the upgrade system where you have like your health balanced out with other things. We're not doing that. We basically just dump all of our stats into launch immediately, and then all of our stats into energy. So we're pretty weak throughout this game. But yeah. So we're coming up to the next mission. The plot has finally remembered that Jesse has a brother. So now we're going to go save Dylan. Dylan right now is in the containment sector of it, in what's called the Panopticon, which is where they house a lot of different altered items and objects of power and all that stuff. So it's not really a great place. Trying to go for some more pull-throughs. I'm trying to do this fight in a specific way so I don't accidentally break something that I shouldn't break, but that was actually pretty good. So yeah, so now we need to go find our brother, and of course Jesse is the only person who could do anything, so something broke out in the containment sector, and now we need to fix that as well. So we talked about the Ocean View motels earlier. Essentially, they're basically just rooms that are loaded into the map that you get teleported to. However, they're still loaded into the map. So because of that, if we can access them out of bounds... Gotta be careful with this one because you can get magically teleported, which isn't great. This is okay.
Okay, that, you know, commentator's curse. There's the magical teleport.
So if you're wondering what just happened right there, basically, sometimes when you are mantling, that's fun. When you are mantling, you end up getting teleported to, I think it's a 000 coordinate on the map, like that. And sometimes it's favorable, sometimes it's not favorable. And we're gonna drop down here. There we go. So what we just did right there is, instead of going all the way around and entering the Ocean View Motel the proper way and then doing the puzzle and then exiting, we just go out of bounds and then drop down straight into it, and that just like lets us complete it immediately without having to do the puzzle. So it's really nice. But yeah, the issue is, and the reason we don't do it for the other ones, is you need to access the Ocean View Motel from out of bounds, and we kind of can do that in some areas, but there's other ones where it's like either not faster to do it like that, or we are missing an objective trigger that we need to hit. And the reason we haven't done shielding up until now is you need 2 control points in the same area. So as you can see, now we have the Panopticon and the logistics fast travel points. Now we can do shieldy because we have these 2. And also you need like 2 specific ones. Like sometimes it won't work between certain points because of reasons. The game just magically decides that it doesn't want to work for those ones. So of course that is going to be changing it.
That was the one caveat that I forgot. Yeah.
There we go. That just skips a huge elevator ride. It's very boring. You also get to say hi to oh fuck, what's his name? I can't remember his name, but it's okay. It's actually kind of good that we're leaving him alone, because something bad happens if you get near him and do his mission.
Let's just call him
Fred. Is a pretty accurate one.
Fred, it's all good. Fred is trapped by a refrigerator. He can't stop.
It's a really good refrigerator, to be fair.
Not to be confused. That's true. I mean, not to be confused with when like you get caught staring at the refrigerator because you're trying to imagine food that you don't have appearing in it. You know, when you're just like, man, I don't feel like going out to the grocery store right now, so you just stare into the refrigerator door hoping for food to appear. But that's not what is happening to Fred. I think he'd prefer.
I would prefer it for sure.
Honestly.
Okay, so you saw right there, I started a cutscene and then I exited in the middle of it. That was me hitting an objective trigger. Normally, we used to watch that entire cutscene and did this boss in the intended way, and then Shieldy happened and completely changed that. So now we're actually kind of almost able to skip the boss. Technically not, we still have to fight it, but this is going to be a very kind of different boss fight than what you would expect. So we come up here, we do Shieldy to get ourselves into the boss arena, and that breaks Salvador's AI, and we should be able to fight these guys. Yes, we can.
This is something you see in a lot of Darksiders or Dark Souls speedruns as well, where the way that you enter an area determines whether or not a boss's AI loads in, and because, you know, Demonic comes in from not the kind of intended way into the fight, then all the enemies are pretty much disabled. The small enemies here, like the minions and stuff, they will eventually drop down. I forget the actual parameters or timing on that, but eventually they'll drop down. But Salvador is never loaded in. You can just kind of fire away at him.
So that's like why I was trying to hesitant is be like, oh yeah, this is the only boss fight that we do in the entire game. If you are interested, there is an all bosses category, and I promise no other boss is as buggy as Salvador. Pretty much every other boss we have to do like in the intended way, just playing it really well, except for that one. But yeah, there's 10 bosses in the base game, and you only have to fight 2 of them to complete the game technically, and that's Tomasi at the very beginning and then Salvador right there, and since we skipped Tomasi, that just leaves Salvador alone. But here we go. As you can see, we have a new ability. This is levitate. This is very, very useful. They pretty much gave us like the perfect tools to go out of and navigate the out of bounds, which is really nice. But now that we have got that, we can go try and find our brother, because that's like what we've been trying to do this entire game and hasn't happened yet.
This is when Jessie really gets her Cole from Infamous vibes going.
Shame she has no electric abilities. That would have been more fun.
Yeah, that'd have been cool. I hope I hope whenever Control 2 comes out, they give her, you know, something sort of like elemental infused. That'd be dope.
Could cause like reactions with the environment and all that jazz. That'd be fun.
I just hope she becomes like Magneto. Just Magneto with like these wild powers, dude.
Yeah.
So
there we go.
Awesome.
We did another Shieldy that skips a bunch of like boring build up stuff to finding out that your brother is not in his containment cell. He's just in the executive sector, which is where we were the entire time. So this was basically a waste to actually do all this. Go. And as you can see, I am in the containment sector. I'm going to the executive sector, and I just wanted to show that like what happens if you like try to do a Shieldy, but you do it to like the wrong checkpoints, is they'll just break it and not work entirely. So that's why we can't do it earlier like that. So normally the game wants you to speak to Emily. We're not going to do that. Emily is cool and all, but we're trying to go fast. So instead what we're going to do is we're just going to go to where his containment cell is by taking this, going here. This is probably like one of the more pettier skips, I would say, where it saves maybe like 5 or 10 seconds if you get it perfectly, and you can lose a lot more with it because it's actually a very hard skip. But here we go. That's still in. Normally the game isn't supposed to be broken like this, but because we entered it that way, nothing works. It's actually kind of scary.
Yep. Yeah, as you can see too, Dylan is still corrupted by the hiss, and they seem to have just entirely decimated his hairline, which is probably the worst thing that they did to him. But he's just totally like infected and just like, I wouldn't say he's spouting nonsense, but he's definitely not the Dylan. Yeah, he's definitely not making sense, and he's definitely not the Dylan that Jesse knows.
It's really cool though. Like, so if you don't know, this game is actually in the same universe as Alan Wake. And one of like the fun mechanics about the game, or about Remedy games, is they're all kind of connected through their own like multiverse. So like if you talk to Dylan long enough, he'll talk about like how there was a writer in Jesse's universe that like was following a New York cop, and then there was another universe where he was real, and that's like a reference to Alan Wake and Max Payne. It's really cool. Like if you guys like Twin Peaks stuff, Remedy games is like the place to go. Also doing a very hard jump here. There we go. Have to go down there to hit a trigger, and if you mess that up, you die, so it's very scary. Gonna come up here, come up here. This is again very precise out of bounds navigation. This is actually like one of the first skips though that was ever found, because the face of the enemy is one of the few missions where like we can pretty much go to the end. There's a couple of triggers that we need to hit, but for the most part, like you're pretty much just going in a straight line to the very last fight, which is cool. Whenever I'm like doing navigation, I always have like very specific spots I land on and very specific dashes that I do in order to make sure I have like enough resources of everything and I'm hitting all the stuff I need. There we go. We are now at the very last fight in this area.
There you go. And this is definitely one of the more dangerous fights, you know, with like how underleveled like we are right now. Enemies just do so much damage at this point.
Like this is really where you start to feel it.
Just super careful. Yeah, absolutely. Dang,
I
chased him
did.
down. I was like, that's brave.
As you can see, I'm also staying up here because it means the enemies can't hit me as easily. So we always want to be careful. You have to like fight these enemies in like a very specific way in order to make sure that you're doing it safely and you're also not going to die. Like that enemy right there was kind of a mini boss. Basically, like if you throw something at it, normally they try to dodge it, so you always want to have 2 throws ready so you can hit it with the second one in case it dodges the first one. And yeah, a lot of that fight is basically just like trying to do that as like optimally as possible.
Yeah, it's basically the same mechanic that Tomasi is built around as well. So if you had trouble with Tomasi in your casual playthrough, that's how you beat him too. Just kind of after you throw something at him, just throw another thing. Which I did not know until somebody told me, and I was flabbergasted.
There we go. We're gonna get more energy. So now it wants us to go to the now we're on Finish Tango. This is where the game wants us to go through the ashtray maze. If you play this game casually, that's probably one of your favorite parts. I have really bad news for you. We are going to be completely skipping it, but we still have to do all the stuff in order to unlock it.
The good news is if you haven't played the game casually, you will not be spoiled on probably the best part of the game. So you can,
yes, that is also a good thing.
Go and play it casually and experience the awesomeness that is the ashtray maze.
Yeah. So something that just happened right there is whenever you're shielding, sometimes your character will mantle onto something, and if you're doing shieldy and you mantle, it breaks the shield, so you have to set it back up. It's kind of funny because when it comes to like the timer that we use, we remove the loads of it. So RTA wise, you lose like 30 seconds. However, if you're doing actual standard run where you're using that official timing method, it loses like maybe 5 or 10. There we go. We've gotten on over, and now we're heading over to the ashtray maze. Unfortunately, Jessie isn't able to navigate it yet. She needs to get some help from Ati the janitor. Unfortunately, he's on vacation. So normally the game wants you to go through all of this stuff, trying to find him, searching all through the maintenance sector. Whoops. We're not going to do any of that because that is extremely slow. So we're just going to shield you on over to the end. Yeah, this is also one of the bigger ones, and this is also where having our levitate comes into play, because when you're using levitate, you actually regenerate your ability bar, so you get more dashes from that, and you can do it without like falling to your death, which is really useful. Because as you can see, when I'm doing shieldy, I actually don't have my energy bar regenerating. As you can see, like I'll just keep on falling. So now that I can levitate, I can let it regen, and then I get way more distance than I would before. And there we go. All right. I don't have a timer, so I'll just use this. Normally, if I had a timer on screen, I would check the time at that button right there. And basically, I want to wait like 90 seconds. Because we are waiting for a trigger to spawn in. Even though we can actually clear this gap perfectly okay. The game still wants us to hit a trigger, and the trigger doesn't spawn in until 90 seconds after hitting that button. But I have a backup, so it should be okay. We also got this ability that doesn't come into play too much, but it will in this next chapter, called the Ground Slam. Basically, for the rest of our ability bar, so the cost of the entire ability bar or even a little sliver, it'll like slam us forward into the ground. But yeah, now that we are just going to be waiting, we have some time for donations.
All right. We don't currently have any new donations. However, once again, we do have that Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance run coming up a bit later today. And with that is the donation incentive to add a bonus any percent run to it. So we're at 33 out of $150 needed for that. And other than that, for anyone who's watching and digs Control, the main character Jessie is played by Courtney Hope. I love Courtney Hope. She is also on The Young and the Restless right now as Sally Spectra, so if you want more Courtney Hope.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah. If you're a Remedy fan, this game is like an all-star cast. The director, like before, Jesse Director Trench is played by Max Payne's voice actor. Dr. Darling is Alan Wake. It's like they really like got their A game here. And of course, Courtney Hope was part of Quantum Break. She was one of the main characters in that as well.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. Quantum Break.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know that.
So now we are heading back to the ashtray maze, and of course we're going to be skipping it entirely. Right now I need to basically navigate the out of bounds in completely pitch black darkness, which is really hard even with what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pull up the map while I'm doing it, and that's how I'm going to be able to like see where I'm going. But this is probably the hardest shielding in the entire game. It's very easy to die, hit a death trigger, or lose your speed, or lose all your height. So I gotta be very, very careful with my mouse movements here.
It's a very good thing that you can keep the map open here as well.
Oh, that was perfect.
Yeesh.
That literally could not have been better. That was like the best I've ever done that. Awesome.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Like your mouse will change your trajectory and speed, so you can go flying off backwards if you aren't careful. It's really like a super hard trick that if you're interested in this game, I would recommend not starting out with the shieldy route. I would recommend doing the old route, because it can be very intimidating otherwise to try and do that trick in some of the other ones.
Game's still hard, but,
of course. Yeah, of course, like though, if you are interested in learning this game, you have a lot of people who will help you, a lot of resources, and like there are multiple runners who will like sit in a Discord call with you and like show you anything you need, including myself. Doing some more out of bounds shenanigans. I'm not sure if you're able to explain this, Cosmic. Do you know it well enough?
I don't actually like know how this works. I just know that this room used to. This is Polaris, right? Yeah. So.
Yes.
So Polaris used to kill a lot of runs because essentially there are a few satellites that you have to activate or like point in a certain direction. And this is, you know, the last fight of the game. So you have to, like, you're really under leveled. You take a lot.
Really quick though, what we're doing right now is we open up that door and that breaks the game into thinking it's trying to load a cutscene. And then we're going to hit the triggers in a very specific order that's like not what the game expects. So the game kind of breaks here. So we can skip this cutscene, but we don't want to because we'll miss a trigger. So we need to let the cutscene run through. It'll only play the cutscene partially. She'll do a little T-pose there, and that means that we can skip the first 3 siphons. So instead of needing to do 6 of them, we can only do 3 of them. And this also enenables us to do something called Never Fighty Satellite, which I'll let Cosmic continue to explain.
Yeah, so this is actually, I wasn't sure what was going on with like how the cutscene thing worked, so thank you. I just remember that, you know, now you can skip 3 of these satellites, and that you used to take a ton of damage doing all of these satellites. And now, because of, you know, the glitch that Demonic just explained, you can go through this area pretty like almost scot-free, I want to say. I think you still have to you have to fight guys at like what, 1 satellite now, I think? Or is it
not really.
Or is that just like a safety thing?
It basically makes us go from a 90% consistent, or like 70 or 60% consistent area to like a 90% consistent area. Because now, normally when I would activate the siphon, if I was doing it the intended way, I would have multiple enemies shooting rockets at my face, and these guys would be trying to hit me. However, if I enter it in with shieldy like that, though, it'll only spawn 2 enemies, and they won't actually aggro to me. So that satellite goes from probably like a 70 or 60% chance of getting it to like 99, really, which is very cool.
So in general, it just makes the whole area like a lot safer. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times I would be watching runs of this game, and a runner would get to this point on like a really nice PV pace and then just die to the amount of like enemies that are just firing rockets at you from every which way.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be like super over leveled in this game, and at this point, and we are barely like able to do so. So we just need to get this last siphon. Thankfully, these last 2 are much safer-ish. All right, we're good. Yeah, you can still die on them. I've died to every single siphon. Every single siphon, I've had at least 1 run die. But here we go. And now we're hitting the checkpoint to this. This thing is basically, there's a lot of lore stuff, and it's kind of messy, so it's hard to explain. But basically, what ends up happening is actually Jesse gets invaded by the hiss. And yeah, that's the game. No, I'm just kidding. The game's not done yet. Timer, keep it going. This is actually a fake ending that the game did, because the like ending of this game is basically like you accidentally kill somebody that's really important, and Jesse gets invaded by the hiss, and then like it tricks you into thinking that that's where the game ends. And I swear, if that was like the actual ending, when I was playing this casually, I was in such a bad mood. I was so angry about it, because I was like, come on, they can't be ending it here. And then I saw this, and I'm like, oh, that's yeah, I don't think this is the ending. So we actually could like Alt F4 our game and then reboot it and then get to like the area after this cutscene immediately. However, that's actually slower in terms of the load remover, and you also have to like force close your game, which isn't great. So we just watch it anyway. But yeah, now we're heading over into kind of the end game. There's not too much left of the game, so time should be coming up in a couple of minutes here. But now we get to see Jesse's, basically what the hiss does is it essentially like shows you your true, most like largest nightmare. And Jesse's like worst nightmare is working a 9-to-5 office job, which is truly terrifying for a lot of people. So game is gonna have us do some of the monotonous stuff like scanning forms, cleaning up coffee mugs, delivering mail, and all that stuff. And there's some lore stuff going on right here, but I'm trying not to go over it too much because, you know, if you want to play this game, I would recommend doing it like for sure. And it's like even better like the less you know. So we're gonna go deliver some mail now to the director and all that stuff. But basically the hiss is inside Jesse's head trying to take control. And now we have to find a way to break out of the mold. Also, Audie's there. Best character in the game. It's a shame we don't see him more in the run.
Yay. Yeah.
Forgotten something. I can't think.
So now that we did the forms, we're gonna do the coffee cups. The forms are only faster the first pass through because you need to do them twice, whereas the coffee cups you only need to do them once. So that's why we do the different objectives.
What is this? Why won't it end? Wake up, please.
Over here, it's gonna give us our mail. So I'm gonna try and do something called a fake noom, whenever you mantle into a cutscene trigger, it'll try and put you both where you're mantling to and where the cutscene is trying to place you to, so you kind of get put somewhere in the middle. This saves absolutely 0 time. It's completely useless. There's nowhere else we can use it, but it's just really fun to try and do. So let's see if I can do it. Yeah, we did it. Let's go. Normally we're supposed to spawn over there, but we get caught in this wall because it's trying to take us back to his desk. So it doesn't save any time because, oh, whoops. It doesn't save any time because we can actually get to that little mail chute thing before it spawns in, but it's still a fun little trick to do.
I will find a way to push them out.
But here we go. Jessie is starting to gain control of herself again, and now we got our service weapon back. So now that we have that back, we're back in our original outfit, and now we can get out of here. Don't worry about the floating Jessies. I'm sure they're all fine. if the Marvel universe has told me anything, is that messing with the multiverse has 0 repercussions whatsoever, and I'm sure we'll be totally fine.
Absolutely.
There we go. We got our last Ocean View Motel. This is actually one of the coolest spots in the game because this is like the only unique Ocean View Motel in it. And there's like a lot of like really cool posters that are like references to Jessie and all that stuff and some other things. But we're not gonna look into any of that. We have now pushed out the hiss though. Jessie has like regained control, and now we're gonna go turn off the slide projector, which is basically something that opens a portal to another dimension, and that's where the kind of hiss is spilling through.
She convinced herself that she was.
So we got some tricky movement here. Normally this is the part of the game where you fight really powered up enemies. Right now they've been around 3 or 4 for most of the game, like level 3 or level 4. This is like where they go up to like level 30. But you're also super powered up too, because the board kind of just like gives you all of their energy. And you're supposed to do like all these super cool fun fights for the end of the game, but we're just gonna kind of skip all that. So the triggers to actually yeah, the triggers to spawn in like the next arenas that you're supposed to fight in will just spawn in if you hit the walking trigger. So because of that, we can just fly all the way over, and as you can see here in a second, gonna pop on in, and then we just need to dash at a certain time, mash jump, and we end up on top of this. And then we can fly to the final arena because they actually kind of forgot something. They forgot to put a hole in the wall. So because of that, we can just basically dash to the very end right here, go through the wall, and there we go. So time is gonna be coming up when we talk to Dylan up there, so it's gonna be here in just a second. Just got to do some movement to get up there on top of this pyramid. And time. Yeah.
Nice run, dude.
Yep. And that was Control. If you're interested in learning this game, we have a link to the Discord on spinrun.com/control. It's a very cool run. There's a lot of different categories that have a lot of variances and all have their own specific tricks and glitches and all that jazz. So there'll be a category for you. There's even a glitchless category called Inbounds where you don't do any of that stuff. So if you wanted something more of a traditional like that, you can. If you're interested in following me, I do a lot of third-person shooters. I do Control, I do Last of Us, I do Mass Effect 2. So lots of cool runs. You can follow me at twitch.tv/DemonicRobots. And I'll let my commentator plug himself as well because he's a really cool guy, and I just want to thank him for being here to do commentary with me.
I'm the director.
As always, man, thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is DE Cosmic, and currently I speedrun a lot of PS2 action games, and I primarily am known for speedrunning the Devil May Cry series. And you can follow me at twitch.tv/DE Cosmic or on YouTube at DE Cosmic Runs.
Yep, thank you everybody for watching. I hope, I wish good luck to the rest of the runners for the marathon, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. I'll pass it back over to the host.